Hello, my name is Gili Bar-Hillel, and I'm one of the people who puts the International in the International Wizard of Oz Club. I live in Israel, and for the past few years, I've been translating the Oz books into Hebrew for a new generation of readers in Israel. And I joined the International Wizard of Oz Club when I was a teenager, about 30 years ago. I'm old. And I wrote a couple of stories for Oziana, one of which I will read to you now. It's from Oziana of 1992 with this beautiful cover by Eric Shanower. And my story is called The Woozy's Tale, with beautiful illustrations by David Maxey. Even in the Emerald City, though it is a marvelous place and full of wonderful sights, it happens once in a while that people are bored. Dorothy was bored, very bored. The entire Emerald City was preparing for a spectacular parade, followed by a banquet and ball to take place in honor of the new wing that had been added on to the palace. The Ozmites were all busy, assembling festive costumes, preening, grooming, getting polished, or carving new bits of themselves, according to their preferences and the stuff from which they were made. Dorothy, however, already had a new dress to wear at the celebration. She had worked with Jellia Jam at putting it together, and it was hanging in her wardrobe the very morning on which she suddenly realized that she was bored. She had wandered all around the palace trying to find someone who was not too occupied to have a leisurely conversation with her, but no one had any time for her. Finally, she walked out into the royal gardens with a nasty little bored temper gnawing at her insides. How I wish something interesting would happen right now, growled Dorothy, punctuating the whine with an angry stomp of her foot. The path in the royal gardens was never built to stand furious stomping, and thus, as Dorothy stomped her foot, one of the emerald paving stones flew out and landed a few feet away from her. Quite alarmed at the consequences of her anger, Dorothy picked up the stone, planning to bring it to someone who would know how to put it back in its setting. Holding it in her hand, she realized, with no small surprise, that the stone wasn't an emerald at all. It was blue. On closer inspection, Dorothy distinguished words etched into the large gem. Crizzerly cruiserly, sizzle the oozerly, izzle the soozerly, 1, 2, 3, read the curious inscription. How odd. How odd indeed, thought Dorothy to herself, forgetting instantly her temper. I wonder what the wizard will make of this. Yes, I must show the stone to him and to Ozma! Roared the Cowardly Lion, his powerful voice booming through the royal gardens. Help! Bees! Bees? Thought Dorothy, turning her head in surprise, only to witness a most disturbing sight. The lion, the hungry tiger, and the scarecrow were running at her, heading for the royal stables, pursued by a large cloud of vicious-looking black bees. Run, Dorothy, to the stables, or you will surely be stung to pieces, cried the scarecrow. Dorothy realized at once the wisdom of his advice, and slipping the sapphire into her pocket, she too fled the stables. As the scarecrow, the last of the fleeing party, ran into the stable, but before the bees could enter, Tick-Tock and Jellia Jam closed the stable door. It seemed that most of the Ozian celebrities had made their way to the stable. Jack Pumpkinhead was there, sorrowfully gazing at a nearly completed fresh pumpkinhead, which in his haste to escape the bees had been crushed and ruined. The many-hued Patchwork Girl was turning cartwheels over the sawhorse, obviously undaunted by the havoc around her. Ozma and the wizard were there, for they had been helping Glinda to settle her chariot-drawing swans in the stable beside Billina and her host of fluffy chicks. What shall we do? Clucked the plucky Billina. Dorothy, Daniel, keep away from the nasty bees. They are so small and fierce. I should fight them, but I can't. What a coward I am, lamented the lion. The scarecrow looked thoughtful. When the Wicked Witch of the West sent her magic bees to stop us, he recalled, Nick Chopper scattered my straw over Dorothy, Toto, and the lion, and it protected them while all the bees blunted their stings against his tin body. but I fear that there is not enough straw in me, or even in this lovely stable, to protect all my meat friends from these worrisome insects. Perhaps we can find some magical means to banish the bees, suggested Glinda, and the party heartily agreed with her. Ozma, Glinda, and the wizard immediately began discussing possible magical solutions to their unpleasant situation, and soon they thought of one that seemed plausible. The wizard removed from his ever-handy black bag a small packet of purple powder and emptied it into the Hungry Tiger's immense emerald water bowl. Ozma added 3 petals from the poppies gracing her coronet and a good luck wish, and Glinda set fire to the pile in the bowl with a blue-tipped match. The fire burnt cheerily, emitting a pleasant-smelling yellow smoke, which curled up to form the words, "Be gone." Then Glinda ordered that the doors be thrust open so that the bees would be exposed to the smoke. As soon as Tik-Tok pushed open the heavy doors, the black bees set up an angry buzz, and it looked as if they were about to attack the terrified Ozmites. But then the smoky script flared up to confront them, and their buzzing promptly stopped. It seemed that time was suspended for the few seconds that the besieged party held their breath, waiting for the bees' response. Then a wave of harsh laughter rippled through the cloud of black bees as it convulsed and split to form new shapes. N-O! Exclamation point. "They're bewitched," whispered Scraps in horror. "They are not bewitched, but I fear they are bewizarded," corrected Glinda with a frown. Dorothy and the besieged Ozmites were terror-stricken. They were now completely vulnerable, defenseless against millions of angry bees, angry magical bees. It was too late for new solutions. Ozma's wand was not at hand, nor the magic belt, and Glinda and the wizard would need time to prepare a more effective spell. The situation was hopeless. The bees were shifting again. The Ozmites braced themselves against attack, embraced each other, but the bees were not yet ready to attack. Instead, they formulated the shape of 2 new words. "Crizzle-crew," spelled the bees. "Crizzle-crew," muttered Dorothy, wondering why the words had a familiar ring. And then an ominous squeak was heard. It was the Woozy, making a ferocious stand against the bees, his eyes flashing brilliant sparks of fire. Squeaked the Woozy. "Out of my way, or I shall gobble you up with 3 smacks of my lips." This cry had a most powerful effect. The bees scattered instantly, terrified by the leathery, square little Woozy and his fearsome squeak. No sooner had the bees disappeared than a skinny, stick-like little man hopped across the stable doors, frantically waving his arms and screeching, "Come back! Return! You must come back to me at once!" "That is the wizard who is responsible for our plight," stated the contrastingly plump Wizard of Oz. "Yes!" screeched the thin man. "I am the most powerful wizard in the world! I would have conquered you if it weren't for that beast," he added, pointing a long finger at the fuming Woozy. The Woozy emitted a tremulous squeak and accused in return, "You are the one who locked me up. You are the one who took my Munchkin family away from me." "True," cackled the long man. "I am the wizard Crizzle-Crew, conqueror of all Oz, at times detained, but never defeated." The conviction in his voice was frightening, but Glinda wasn't scared. "I remember you now," she said calmly. "You are the wizard who helped the Wicked Witch of the West gain her reign in the country of the Winkies. You lost your powers when my cousin Gayelette made your black wolves, crows, and bees slaves to her own silver whistle as a punishment for the terror you struck among the Gillikin people who were her charges." "That can't be true," cried the Woozy. "He's always had plenty of bees. He used to send them against the Wicked Witch of the East, planning to drive her out of the Munchkin country and to crown himself their king. Finally, the Wicked Witch commissioned her bootmaker to build me out of the toughest bee-proof leather. She brought me to life and used me to chase the bees out of her house. Crizzlecrew stopped sending his bees to sting the witch herself, but sent them against the Munchkin farmers instead in order to force them to pay him taxes. One day the bootmaker stole me away from the witch's house and brought me to his own, where I could protect the entire valley from the black bees. Oh, I loved him dearly, for he had created me and was quite happy munching bees all day long and being the hero of the Munchkin farmers. Finally, the wizard made the bootmaker and his family disappear and locked me up in a pen where I could do him no harm until Ojo and Scraps and the glass cat arrived to take me away. But by that time, I'd forgotten my poor Munchkin family, wept the Woozy woefully. I didn't make your family disappear, gloated Crizzlecrew. I transformed them. They've been with you all along. And Gayolette did not take all my powers from me, he added, pulling a nasty face at Glinda. She overlooked my lovely queen bee who helped me rebuild my stock of magic bees. I used these bees to help the Wicked Witch of the West conquer Gayolette, for which the witch promised to give me Gayolette's whistle and thus return all my animals to me. But when we had conquered the sorceress, the witch claimed not to have found the silver whistle and gave me an all-purpose spell instead. Huh, she was lying, remarked Dorothy, for she used the whistle against the Tin Woodman, the Lion, the Scarecrow, Toto, and I. Indeed, as soon as I discovered she had been lying and swore sorry. Indeed, I soon discovered that she had been lying and swore to take revenge upon her. But Gayolette's magic made her too powerful for me to deal with the help of my bees alone, so I decided instead to terrorize her sister in the East. What did you do to my bootmaker and his wife and baby? Asked the heartbroken Woozy. Ha! I am cleverer than all of you, chanted Crizzlecrew gleefully. I used the all-purpose spell to turn them into 3 hairs on your tail. Here everybody paused to stare in awe at the Woozy's tail. You'll never see them again, sneered the Long Wizard, for I wrote the words that break the spell on a stone, which I have lost. And now I must be off to collect my bees and find a better way to attack you. He spoke these words with a wide grin on his face, but his grin vanished quickly enough soon afterwards. While he had been telling his story, the wizard had cast a spell to keep him glued tight to the very spot on which he stood. What shall we do with him now? Asked Ozma. I think we should give him a taste of his own medicine and stick him in a beehive with his bees, grumbled the Cowardly Lion. Put him in a beehive till he learns to behave, sang the Patchwork Girl merrily. Beautiful, exclaimed Ozma, and ran to fetch her wand so that she could transport the bees with their hive to the Emerald City and make the hive big enough to hold Crizzlecrew. Hurrah! crowed Billina. Everyone was happy but Crizzlecrew and the Woozy. The Woozy had shed 5 square tears while staring forlornly at his tail. Dorothy knelt to hug and comfort him, and as she held him to her, was conscious of a painful lump sticking into her thigh. Of course, she cried, and withdrew the sapphire she had found earlier that morning from her pocket. Holding the gem up to the light, she recited the words of its inscription. Crizzerly, cruiserly, sizzly, oozerly, izzle the soozerly, 1, 2, 3. There were 3 flashes of blue light, and then a jovial Munchkin bootmaker, his wife, and their child appeared. At first they were greatly confused, but soon they regained their wits, and after much fondling of their heroic pet Woozy, they were more than pleased to join the festivities in honor of the new wing. Dorothy was no longer bored. As for the Crizzlecrew, he was at first stung by so many bees that he swelled into the shape of a squash, but his bees soon got used to him, and life in the Emerald City made both him and them sweet-tempered before long. If you visit the Emerald City, be sure to stop by Crizzlecrew's hive, for you'll be served the most delicious honey. He has learned to behave and lives quite happily in his bee haven. Yes, I'm very good at bad puns. I hope you enjoyed the story. Thank you very much.